We will now connect you to your call. The host has joined the conference. Conference recording started.
Good morning. Welcome to another week. We'll get started reading this week's paperwork.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have an appointment? I'll let him know. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we've started the meeting and started reading our paperwork.
All right, well,
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I provided you with the selection of budget sheets that you might need. Are there any missing at this time that I could do that?
let me just see if I can apply that to my sheet, which I did stick in here somewhere this morning. To be able to find it in that mess, that was amazing.
Those are the only ones I have, but if I have to get anything else.
That would be the second go-round. So town clerk, supervisor of the checklist, budget committee, treasurer, tax collector. So,
Okay, those should all be in there.
okay,
And
so,
the library, right?
and the library, correct. Yep.
Okay, I think you're all set.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chris. Is that on there? Perfect. The unknown selectmen. Saves a fortune on paper bags.
Oh, that's perfect, thank you.
I don't have to be first. Oh, we'll listen to it afterwards. You can see us all. No, we don't.
There's some in that box. Where?
Where? Alrighty.
Yeah.
As you're going through the goals and manifests, I discovered that we had two separate accounts with waste management for containers. And I initially thought that it was different size containers, but it's not, because they're mixed and matched on both bills. Anybody have any idea why we have two separate accounts?
Is one of those accounts for the glass container?
I don't believe so when you look at it.
Okay. Because that would have been the only add-on that, and we have two overflow containers. So the overflow containers typically are 30-yarders. Those might be,
I'm just thinking anything that's an open dumpster might be
versus
different from
compactors.
compactors.
Well, when you look at them, you'll see that the sizes are mixed and matched on both bills. It's not like one bill's for 42-yard containers, one bill's for 32, and one bill's for 30. They're mixed and matched in both bills.
Doesn't one say compactor right on it?
Compactor.
Yeah, and then they'll have,
Roll off. Yeah, so it differentiates.
Now go to the next one, Bill, Chuck, and you'll see that it's a new account number, and we still.
Oh, cool, yeah, it's another one.
You're okay with me calling and consolidating them?
I just wanted, before we called them, I wanted to see if there was some rhyme or reason to it, and not to stir it
Yeah,
up.
there is, actually is. The first one is compactors. The second one is 42-yarders. Oh, no, there's another 30-yard class.
We did
No,
that
and
yesterday.
another 30-yard, okay, yeah, I don't know why you get two.
Well, I didn't
It
want,
looks like it's one bill, though. Is it one bill?
no, two
Two
separate
separate
bills.
bills. I don't get that.
Feel free to solve the puzzle.
All right, because I just, because we deal with facilities in Chicago. So when you deal with them, you're talking to someone
yeah.
that has no idea about what might have been set up.
Yep.
So.
In the signature folder, you'll see there's not a timber tax levy, and Gwen asked to table that to next week.
Okay. Tom just brought to my attention that there's a, HEB Engineering sent, the final billing payment, and there should be another form that goes with it that gives a breakdown of all the, quantities and stuff for the Elm Street Bridge. This is to confirm the final number of payments, dollar amount in the payments. The permit has been put in. We probably should be being approved about right now for the, final work. So, it's gonna require my signature, and I will provide that. I just wanna make sure everybody's good with that, and you get to see this. We'll make that signature happen and get this sent out to HEB. It is going to be just under $10,000 under budget, in case anybody's interested. There should be another portion with that. Tom, did you see that in there? The schedule of items?
No, I saw that there, but just saw one signature.
Okay. Because I have pre-signed. So all you have to do is make a copy of that one. As long as everybody's good with it.
That was a change order, not a bill, correct?
Correct, it's a change order, and the final work will come in, and we'll get the final bill for the, apartment.
And that is, the agenda, that is D number 6.
I have not got that far. I squeaked in under the wire again today. I can't seem to get out of the house. I was sending pictures, and they take so long to download for the boilers. It's on the generic Effingham email, but it's the boiler and the silo and stuff. And it will communicate with, this company here. So Gwen said to hold off on the MS1?
That's the MS1, item F under the signature, the timber tax levy.
Okay.
That should have it this morning, but she doesn't.
It's nice looking at the correspondence to see a thank you from the Freedom Food Pantry for the, collection point at Election Day. 235 items consisting mostly of food. Successful.
I want to take a shout out to Karen Payne. I think she's the one who kind of put that forward again this year to
She did.
lead that, so always thinking of others, Karen. My copies. Alrighty then. We got a number of items that have to go out in that folder today. And it's not even cluttered today, I'm struggling. Uh-huh. Yeah. You dump it anywhere, Chuck. So Brian, you feel that this exemption needs further discussion?
The answer to that question, I guess, is from when, the answer is no.
Okay.
But that's, I don't have total knowledge of it, I just asked, and I was told that we just didn't qualify.
Right. So unless you have something else to bring to the table on that, I think we just, okay. All right, then we'll probably just move on, and it's up to them to come back with other information. Who is that masked man? Good morning, Mr. Strauss.
Hi, Dave.
Notice those sneakers on the newly polished floor.
We got our money's worth out of it. No sneaking in here.
Yeah.
No, no, all set, thank you.
So that means that the Zoom is recording well because Gwen's watching it from her office.
Oh, good. So the 15-minute issue is not an issue, and this is gonna run,
Correct, it's being saved on the storage, server storage now.
all right, so we'll get our first
Okay.
test run, thank you.
Exactly.
Somebody told Gwen to switch.
No, yeah, switch.
Wow. My lady, all right.
I've seen that one.
Oh, I've seen that one.
I haven't
Good.
seen that one.
Oh, all right.
Galleries, thank you to everyone. So, there were 10 people in, we'd be able to see them all.
I'm gonna have to speak to Joe about that top sheet, because it really screws up our operation in this office if he does it this way.
Yeah.
Because everything is done alphabetically to the payroll, so now there's a good chance you'll miss somebody if you have to keep going back and forth, that's one problem. The second problem is for audit purposes, the bottom of the pay stub is attached to the pay sheet, and we don't have a pay sheet, or we have to put a copy of that with all the individuals, and it just makes life a lot more difficult here.
So, how, has he submitted a number of these this way?
Oh, that's the first one.
Okay, so that should be nothing to just switch. recreate that.
I know it makes it easier there, but it makes it much more difficult here.
I'm sure he'll understand. Not. So we've had our floors waxed. We have a new individual that's showing up and cleaning the buildings. Everything's going good, Chris?
Yeah, very clean.
Excellent.
Also, Mike, when you were looking through the pay, Ada Morrissey was paid over 40 hours this week, but that's only because she was authorized to spend more than 30 hours on the trustees until they get the new person in, and I missed it in the last two paychecks, and Audrey noted that on the slip. So really, it's not one week that's making up for some stuff that we owe. And paid 41 hours this week, but that really isn't this week. She had 2 weeks of 33 versus 30 and 1 week of 35. And maybe that's put it out of this meeting.
Yeah, probably. Payroll stuff, I don't get into too much of that.
I know that certain members of the board, I don't know if you or the others that are questioning, can someone's gone over 40.
That would be me.
That would be you, okay. So that was the explanation for why that happened.
You're gonna lead me down a road where I'm gonna say something I'm gonna regret. All right. So, that's probably in the manifest as well, but I noticed that we have our electrical outlet is in for the phones, the whole
Yes, and Selectman Pat has discovered some of my frustration with getting consolidated to make decisions. Because he decided to call, and, I don't know, it took a couple of days to get a call back, and.
A week.
A week, okay. And finally she called them back, but they know that their outside people need to put the outside line in at every.
I'm gonna be covering that when I went over with her.
Okay, all right,
All right, well, I won't get off the beaten track, as you always say. There he is, jumping in the middle of the agenda. Sometimes I'm on overload, you know, if I don't get it out.
Okay. No, actually, you weren't here when I was just saying it. 2 weekends ago, a Piper Cub flew over on Saturday and had a boom blow with a big camera on the bottom of it. So it went through the valley, from the transfer station up toward the state line, and then swung back across my property up over Culford Hill and came down. And there were a lot of people that actually saw that plane flying around. I had no clue what it was. So.
Harvest season.
Yeah, well, usually we'll see the helicopters going up on the line there this time of the year. State's flying over it, conservation's flying over it, looking for pot, but,
It's supposed to keep.
No, we have one.
no, I give that to you.
So what are you looking at here, customer ID numbers for the solid waste? Is that what you're going by to say there's 3 accounts?
Yeah, there's 2 on the top right, there's account numbers, and 2 different invoices coming in the mail.
Okay, so I saw 3 different customer ID numbers.
It's
This is the account numbers. There's 3 that I'm seeing.
I think the customer ID numbers is what we're talking about. I didn't see 3, I only saw 2 of that.
I think the key question, Mike, is why, it looks like they could put everything on one bill, why did we get 2 bills?
Right.
I think that's a really big issue.
Well,
Because it's itemized, the first one's itemized with compactors and 42-yarder and 30-yarder.
The other thing is,
well, it has a customer ID number on the top right, and it also has a customer ID number in center of page, and on this first invoice, it's the first one, there's 2 different things. Up in the top, it has a customer ID number that repeats somewhere else, but it also has a number of customer ID numbers inside the bills. And those are all for different things, best I can tell, because you have your, let's see, you have bulk containers, you have, the single stream, recovery, you have glass, and you have, demo and municipal solid waste. So I think they're breaking them out by each one of the various
Right.
types. But I'm not sure that that's,
But there's a way,
has anything.
the way that billing is, there's a way to do that on that existing billing without having to send 2 separate bills.
Correct.
I think that's the question.
Right.
Why 2 separate bills when you can include everything on one with all the appropriate breakdown?
and the other thing it would do, Mike, is it would make it easier for us to track whether they really did take that number of containers or not.
Well, again, I see where you're saying there's 2 different numbers, under customer ID. It has customer ID and it lists 2 numbers, but down inside the breakdown, it lists more customer ID numbers. Excuse me, at least that's what it looks like to me.
I just don't understand why we get 2 separate bills.
That's the real question. You can itemize everything on one bill.
Well, and then, I guess the interesting thing that I'm looking at here is there's actually, for tracking purposes, which would probably interest you, there's a customer ID number for everything.
Probably their asset number for their pieces of equipment, so trailer number,
Because every one of them's gonna.
yeah. It's probably the
That
ID for
makes
their
sense, yeah.
piece of equipment. So you can tell that each of those customer IDs wasn't emptied 3 times the same week.
Because if they were repetitive, like this one, we have municipal solid waste, we have 3 dumpsters going under the same customer ID number, which is more than they could haul with 1 piece of equipment. So I'm not sure what the answer is there, but I would think from a tracking standpoint, if all these customer ID numbers were breakdowns in themselves, if we track those, or could get that information, that would tell us exactly what we're spending for each, they're not commodities, but each item, it would be interesting for budget purposes, it would be nice.
Well, there should be a way, because of their reporting system,
Yeah,
there should be a way for us to request a summary report within a date period.
they do
It says, give
something
us
in a year.
this breakdown.
Yeah, I just got one of those actually.
Oh.
Well, you're gonna call them, I guess? Nobody said, we do that because. So, yeah, we'll follow up.
big bill,
Good size one.
$8,600. Never hurts to understand when you get bills like that, right? All right, I think I finally pulled up the rear here and got through it all. No, I didn't get that one. Didn't get this one? Darn. You guys hiding this stuff.
Always the last one.
It's almost like we got a salute, huh? You have those on his vehicle too, do you know?
No.
Uh-huh. Peek at this little interaction later. I hadn't received this one myself from, Ms. Johnson from the state regarding health officers' appointments, but I do have a, set up a tentative conversation and her to review some interactions she's been having with the individual who keeps calling her office. Follow up with that. Chuck, you covered the Freedom Food Pantry. Oh, interesting. The, Ossipee Planning Board has scheduled a public hearing for October 20th at 7 p.m. at the Freight House. So I guess that looks like that's gonna be an in-person.
Looks like it. We ought to probably put that notice up on our site too.
Yeah, absolutely. Butters, to land intended for subdivision, special use permit. So that'll be about the, Angelini sand pit,
Yeah.
gravel pit, gravel extraction, whatever you wanna call it.
Isn't there like 2 letters in there? I think the other one maybe might say if it's a patrol.
One was an original, one was a copy, I thought.
Oh, was it?
So this is a regional impact study for the, this concerns whether the road is appropriate to access this property. Our planning board, by a statute that was discovered through interactions with our attorney, kicked this over to the town of Ossipee for their review because the sole access to that gravel pit is through the town of Ossipee. So they'll be addressing strictly the access, not the business or anything else that it encompasses, but the access. Gonna write that down as something of interest, since I'm representing this board on. That's just exactly what you said, that's an additional copy. Anybody wanna attend the annual meetings or Northeast Resource Recovery Association? Take that as a no. The day after the election, I don't think anybody will have no strength left.
Yeah.
Be recovery day.
So, what is this? The Green Mountain Conservation Group 2020 annual business meeting, November 19th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. So it's all their internal.
Election of officers and updates for the year and and then they've got their newsletter attached to that.
We'll have to look at that later.
The Conservation Commission might be interested in that.
Yeah,
I think Emily on that, I think that's,
I wouldn't doubt it. Emmeline is also located almost across the street. Emmeline Albert, who's the conservation chair for Effingham from this organization. But probably wouldn't hurt to let them know.
yeah, I got my copy in the mail the other day.
Oh, did you? All right, I guess that's the, end of the signature folders. Information. So, let's see, we have a manifest, and I'll make a motion to approve of $22,856.14. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Hal and I. And the, signature approval folder, you have the minutes of October 6th, 2020 regular session meeting minutes. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Hal and I. I will make a motion to approve the October 6th, 2020 work session minutes. Do I have a second?
All second.
We got it in. All in favor?
All right.
Hal and I. Let's see, we had a summary inventory evaluations known as the MS1 form for the Department of Revenue Administration. Gwen has compiled that for us, and that is signed and ready to go out. Let's see, Effingham Winter Road Agreement, that's our contract for snow plowing from November 2020 to May 2023 has been awarded and signed, and that needs to be forwarded to the Evans Brothers. We have the change order for Elm Street, which was decreased by, the original price was decreased by $10,136.27. So that has been signed and needs to be sent out to HEB Engineering. And just to touch briefly on this bridge repair, we saved some money in certain areas because the extent of the repairs was unknown until uncovered the asphalt and you got into some of the work. So that changed as it went. Also, some areas of repair were expanded upon. The abutments, the crack in there over the last year and a half, whatever it grew. So there was more repair work to be done there. And the opposite side abutment, there was one of the, it's like a pedestal on the top outside the bridge at the highest point. It was showing signs of swelling and a crack was going to start in there. So that's going to be chipped out and replaced. So we actually have added additional work, and a Department of Environmental Services wetlands permit was required because of some of the additional work that wasn't in the original price. So there's a considerable amount of things taking place here. This was a pretty fluid project, and that we come out under budget, even doing some extra stuff is pretty good. And that work should be completed hopefully this month or next month at the latest, because H.E. Hansen will be getting back to us on that. We had a number of right-of-way issues, and letters have gone out. There's another one going out today. And there's a timber tax levy signed for one of the timber roads. What's that? Yeah, I'm seeing it now. I'm thinking, I didn't see that in there, actually. So that's tabled. I guess Gwen is looking into that some more. Action folder, there was a report of a bump on Stevens Road. I also had a report of a pothole on Huntress Bridge Road. It should probably be filled. Not sure. Tom, you went out?
Stephen, yeah, it's at the very end. It's, I don't know if it's where front wheel drives when they stop and then they take off sometimes, get out on the 153. They might tear up a little dirt here at the very end. It's not,
Oh, so if people don't peel out and drive normally, then they won't be digging holes.
As someone that,
that's a good idea, Chuck.
as someone someone that uses that road regularly, it is an ongoing problem. But the issue is it a town problem or a state problem, because it's right on 153?
It's the town problem, because that's our road where it meets. And then all those kinds of things, and now I gather it's right there where 153 connects, so that's always a spot where you transition.
Same problem coming off Hunter's Bridge Road onto 153.
Yeah, any road, dirt road where you're transitioning to the tar, it always digs out, so. I will be touching base with Mr. Evans today on a few things, so we'll find out where things are and what he can do. I know that grading is taking place, at least spot grading around
Actually,
town.
I passed him on Snow Road today. He was coming in as I was coming down here, so.
All right.
I mean, here's a whole idea, but I wouldn't call much to go
That,
there.
right.
It doesn't warrant that kind of money, I don't think.
Right. All right, well, you know, the dirt roads, we're gonna have
Oh, I know.
occasionally, and,
I think the rest of the road's gonna need it eventually at some point, so.
well, that's it, and that's what I'll check in to see what kind of, assets, resources we have in that general area work being done, and if they're over there, then add it to the list. Like you say, a special trip for a pothole here and there is,
Yeah.
depending, yeah, could be worth it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll follow up on that. Zoning officer report, I guess everybody got a chance to look.
You wanna do the application?
Actually, no,
Do we wanna have him in?
no. We've had this, application in before, and
Okay.
I guess what we would do is, if we wanna talk about this, we'll do that in our non-public,
Okay.
we're gonna do a legal.
Yep.
So we can add an employment thing. We really don't usually do
Yep.
that, so. All right. So we did get the zoning officer's report. There's quite a few things going on, obviously, with, some junkyard notices and such going out. There's been some court activity on some other things, so, again, we can go through that in a work session unless anybody
Nope.
wants no items. So the junkyard notices, like I just mentioned, have gone out. Yeah, I don't know about, the process to nominate a health officer, that, those standards I'll check with the state on, but we went through their process for the whole thing. So, I know that this individual is a little, tug of war with the town on more than one occasion, and I think that's all that's about, but we'll take care of it. Discussed already the good work from Freedom Food Pantry and their letter back to us. There's a notice of a public hearing in Ossipee for October 20th, again at 7 p.m. to deal with the Angelini Pit and the access through Duncan Lake Road. A meeting for NRRA's annual meeting by Zoom. And let's see, Green Mountain Conservation's annual meeting November 9th at 7 p.m. And that's a Zoom item as well. I'm sure people can get information from Green Mountain Conservation Group if they want to attend that Zoom meeting. So, already beaten to death, I would say, the administrator's comments on waste management. However, should we go down any further on that?
Yes.
Okay, Brian.
Well, Mr. Strauss,
He'll be back.
he keeps wanting to know if we're done with all the costs of Pine River Road culvert replacement. And I keep saying no, and I got another email from him yesterday wanting to know if now we're done, because an HEB bill has come in for that. I'm inclined to say no again, because we don't know what we're going to have to do with the other culverts and whether that will come up to 3. So I don't know how to answer Mr. Strauss on that question.
Okay, well, I think there's a couple things there. We want to verify that we did find all the costs involved to date. Then there is the permit that is under review right now from Department of Environmental Services that was submitted by HEB. So those costs, as far as engineering fees, may not be completed for this year because there's a review going on, which sometimes is some back and forth. So that's open-ended at this point.
once we get that permit, we'll probably get our final invoice for the year, for this year.
Okay, the repairs aren't gonna be made, or what?
No, the installation will take place next year, so there'll be no installation cost. Should that permit be approved, we'll be looking at materials and all the road work and such, but that's something we've had a conversation about trying to incorporate in our road reconstruction warrant article, a number of roads that we're going to target that money for, not just Green Mountain Road, the continuing the work there, but there were several other roads that need a certain level of repair, and this falls into that group.
But Dave, the answer is no.
Not yet.
To be determined.
What you had to date, what you had to date, Ron, is what I was going for. I knew we had some HEB because of the new work going out, but what we had to date, that's what the budget committee has been asking.
So the year-to-date submissions, even though we've got other stuff coming, we just know the year-to-date number.
But yes, they wanted to know what it costs to do what we just did, it's best guess that we have.
Right, and,
So I had 26, I sent Brian detailed out with some, I know we had some Evans that were left to do on the walls.
Well, we paid the construction costs to Evans Brothers, that's been paid. But I don't know if we've got all the HEB, and I didn't know whether we were gonna have to do more construction this year or not, that was my question to the board right now.
Just what we have to date, if you can give me that.
That's what's in the, yeah, you probably don't see the comments, okay, I'll give you that.
All right, thanks.
so just to follow up a little further on that particular installation, want to give Dave a hand before he wrecks the place? That's on our list to do too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Want me to hang that up?
Yeah, keep Dave alive. Actually got everything on the truck, I think.
Don't hit the bottom corner with your elbow.
It's one of those, if you ask too many questions, they get you.
Yeah, you get the truck. Yeah, right.
That's that red button.
That's our version of the sword of Damocles. A lot of times we hit you with a whiteboard. So, to follow up a little bit on that process at Pine River Road, normally when you get a wetlands permit, it's good for 5 years and the potential of an extension. This was in response to an emergency permit. So the likelihood is there'll be a 1 year, 2 year, there'll be some sort of a time frame that's not normally on your regular permit attached with this. My thoughts are here that they're probably, DES that is, the state is probably gonna want this completed next year because of the nature of it. So that's just for clarification. And we don't know if the solution that's been put forward by HEB is going to be accepted or be tweaked. And if there's that back and forth exchange, then more money to change plans. Anyway,
Going further down my little list here, I would have consolidated, the Selectmen tells me he's gonna cover that in his comment.
my sheet doesn't have that.
Huh?
My agenda doesn't have.
I know that, these
Oh.
were added as you were talking this morning,
Oh,
ideas were popping up.
let me put in B. Okay.
And C, as I've told the chairman, I will not be here Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and maybe not Thursday. Luann has to have serious operation on her shoulder, and that's on Tuesday. The doctor's indication won't be able to do much of anything on Wednesday. Thursday still to be figured out. That's problematic because the audit's scheduled for next Tuesday and Wednesday here. Now, Audrey has indicated she's gonna be here Tuesday, and that's not a problem for her. And I think she's getting, so she's pretty, even though, I think she's getting pretty adept in QuickBooks. At least a version we use. And as far as someone staying here to lock up on Wednesday, Deanna said she will be here all Wednesday, so that's not an issue if they need to stay past 2 o'clock. The only problem is gonna be, getting material from them, and we're trying to work out a scheduled with Christine and Gwen, so at least one of them will be here to run material if they ask for it.
Well, and that was my thought too, is typically they want hard copies when they're in here, so I don't think accessing QuickBooks is probably gonna be the issue.
Last year, they had a lot of access to QuickBooks.
That right.
And I was the one that was running a lot of that, and they asked for that access also after they finished up, so.
Consolidated here?
Oh, somebody wanna take that? Consolidated, good.
Is that consolidated?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll, talk a little bit about consolidated while he's out.
Okay.
The outside engineer indicated that before they could move any further forward, there had to be the line run. They had to have the, hole inside of the building to accept the line and the receptacle installed. Both of those are done. I've left voice messages with Pascal Coates, who is the overall coordinator. And I've sent emails. She hadn't responded to me. Selectman Hart decided he was gonna start to get into it, and so he did it last week, and it took a week for him to get a response. But apparently the responses worked because they're outside.
They're actually inside now. So, good. Well, hopefully Tom will have an, these look like the people who actually do the work and install stuff. So when Tom joins us, maybe he'll have a little more.
Well, what Consolidated told me is an outside engineering process. They run the line from the pole into where the demarc is going to be in the building. Then they're done. Then there's an inside engineering group that comes in and sets up from the demarc into the box that we've installed for the equipment. And they do that run. Then there's a actual equipment install engineering group that comes in and puts the equipment in and teaches us how to use it.
Okay. Now, is there a cleaning engineer group and, you know, somebody with signals and flags? Sounds like there's a lot of moving parts, so. I'm just gonna move on and just let people know that we're working on the idea of being able to get our live streaming videos of these meetings out. And those could be used by anybody else, any other boards, any other meetings, political place, commissions, committees. The budget committee would be able to put those out as well, because they like to do in-person meeting for the people that are involved, the Board of Selectmen, maybe a representative who's coming in to address them and their members. Other than that, I think that's pretty much where it is right now. And you do just the audio, right, Dave?
No, Lindhoff Associates was here yesterday and spent some time working on several issues. And actually, I'm going to let Audrey address those because she's much more knowledgeable in that field than I am. You're on.
So we're testing Zoom today. This is our first Zoom recording, and it's going to the server, so we should have a full meeting to look at and listen to. Gwen's also listening to it, so we can see what the volume, the audio, what her experience is watching it. I think the whiteboard was probably off camera.
Can I ask, Zoom recording, it's a Zoom recording?
Right, because you need to have something that records it. I did a little research last night and found something else that Albany uses, several towns in Maine, New Hampshire use it, and it's a little bit easier. You just flip a switch on the wall, and they store everything up to 5 years, so you can go back and watch the videos. So we discussed where we would store the meetings and what the bandwidth would be. So my thought was that YouTube isn't the most, I'm going to say professional spot. You know, people go there for music and adventure and stuff, not necessarily a great place for town meetings. And no matter where it is, I think you want a link on the website. And I'm gonna talk to Teresa more about that and then do more research. But, that's what I found in Albany, is that they just had a link to this other company, and then you could scroll down, pick your town and what meeting. So it also posts the meetings there when they're coming up, and then, the meetings are available to watch. So, I need to compare the Zoom price, the annual and monthly price, because, that is more expensive than maybe we initially thought. And then also bandwidth issues, if we were to put those for some reason attached to our website, or do we want to look at this other software that might be a little bit easier? So that's the research I'm doing for the recorded meeting.
Okay. I think one of the reasons we were looking at YouTube is because there wasn't a cost and we just upload them there. But, on behalf, look forward to seeing what you find out. Yeah. Live streaming is great. Having this available in some fashion for folks to be able to view it is the thing. And I think that's what Mr. Comeau does with his government oversight is YouTube. But,
He's live streaming it right now.
so, yeah, it'll, your cost and storage will be a thing. Okay, Brian? Talk a little bit about the server.
Yes. So, we also had an issue with the server yesterday morning. Everything was very slow. When software and QuickBooks, it was just not even coming up. So the Avatar, I believe is their name, came in to the server, and they hadn't closed one of the windows from the update they had done last Thursday. And when we looked at the server, they did a scan, there was one bug on it. I don't know if it was a virus or not, what the official name was, but that was quarantined. We decided we would reboot the server for performance. Computers like that every once in a while. This server is very old, it did not like it. It could be multiple reasons. Microsoft can do updates that interfere with semantic, maybe semantics. The antivirus software needs updating. So after maybe an hour, hour and a half here, and trying to reboot it twice and close down some programs, we had him leave it. Gwen did notice that it did come back up because the desktop wasn't even coming up, so we could look and see. It was very disconcerting. And so we're leaving it right now. On Friday, we're going to run a full virus scan because it takes quite some time, so that'll run over the weekend, and we'll see if there's anything else in there. You know, it would be a concern if we think that Avatar uploaded stuff and brought the virus in with them, so that wouldn't be good. But right now, everything's stable. We're going to watch it. I did ask them to provide us with a price for a new server, so we can at least anticipate those costs in the future.
We knew when we did the upgrades last year that the server was extremely old and had a limited lifespan.
And with that, I thought there was discussion that we could move away from a server completely.
Most likely, that's what the proposal will be when they get it.
I'm not sure that's gonna be true any longer, because we have done some other stuff and updated and increased some, so we're still looking at that possibility. I do the synology that we were able to purchase with COVID funds, because it's also needed for this, has taken some of the pressure off of the server. But I guess one of the things I want to make sure, and Dave hears this too, is nobody has ever really developed a plan to continuously update electronics here, particularly computer electronics. Server will be 11 years old in another month. The life expectancy of most servers is 3 to 5 years. Most of the computers here are 10 years old or older, and we keep band-aiding them together to make them work a little longer. Someone needs to sit down and address a don't have to replace everything in 1 year, which you could wind up doing here if everything decided to quit at the same time. Where there is a replacement plan where you start replacing stuff in 3 to 5 years. Electronics these days, if they're 5 years old, they're so outdated, it's unbelievable. Just look at the size of the computer we use in here, versus what else we have. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that someone ought to, and I know CIP will look at that at some time, but I'm afraid not soon enough. And so I think you need to start addressing that. I think we can carve that, talking to Lynn Hunt and talking with Audrey, you can probably carve your server to run for another couple of years, probably, because we've taken some of the strain off it with the Synology. But because you're developing more and more activity and we're developing more and more stuff that we're trying to do using electronic equipment, I think you're gonna look at a server. Now, you may be able to look at a overgrown desktop to work as a server. And actually, Linhart is going to look at that possibility rather than buying a server itself.
Why would we wanna do that if that sounds like a Band-Aid?
It is.
There's actually a couple of different things we can take a look at, and I'll be more than happy to work with Audrey,
And
coming up with a bit of a game plan, because there's newer technology that's come out in the last year or two, where we don't need to physically have a box in the other room,
Right.
a server box.
Yeah.
Literally, the server will be slightly bigger than that solid state box over there on the counter.
Right.
And that'll service everything we need. And you do a second one with a backup, and I believe that's what he put in there a couple of years ago, or last year. So we probably have that one done. But I'll work with Audrey and we'll come up with a
Okay,
plan.
so financially, did you have something?
yeah, you can go ahead. I'll pick up after you.
Okay, so the idea that the equipment here, computer-wise, I thought we were occasionally replacing some of those. We haven't been. I thought we had some new ones for Deanna's office,
Those were always screens.
just screens.
Just screens.
Upside.
These screens. And, we purchased 2 refurbished computers, one with COVID money, so that if we had to shut down, Deanna would be able to operate remotely, because she didn't own a computer.
Right.
And the other one we put in the fire station, because that one over there was so antiquated, but that's not, with COVID money, that just replaced something that was antiquated with a refurbished unit, trying to, again, put Band-Aids on to keep things functioning. But there really needs to be a plan, and there is none.
For in this office, then, we're talking approximately 5 computers, because there's,
Yes. But actually 6, because you got the one out there in planning and zoning that is by a number of different departments.
well, planning and zoning, it's here, I think, is the one, that's fairly new. That's only a couple of years old, I think. No?
It's an old one. There's a computer out in the back out there that, general assistance uses,
Yeah.
planning uses. Yeah, it's just the only way she can get into the advertised stuff too, without.
Oh, that's not planning, you're talking the zoning office.
Well, and planning also, planning's on it. Now, how much they use it,
They don't use
I
it.
don't know, but they're on it, they're signed on, and they have a,
They have a computer in here that was purchased not very long ago, but, so you're talking about the one out there. Okay, so 6.
yeah.
All right, so we used to have a technologies fund, trust fund, and I don't think anybody was pursuing a direction with it. You know, it started off that way, that people were looking into it, but that whole technology group that was working on that kind of fell apart, as far as I know. It just stopped, and we stopped funding it. So I think maybe in the short term, we should consider starting to add some money into that as part of a replacement for computers in general, because we need so many of them. And then in the short term, we might be able to buy computers from operating budgets under office equipment for the 2 officers and do the occasional computer. And a review of what we have in our technology fund might allow us to purchase things in the short term, should we need that, because we're agents to spend, I believe.
Just so you all know, I believe Linhart has done a pretty comprehensive comprehensive inventory of what's here, and the approximate ages is best he could determine by the serial numbers and the model numbers.
And there again, where Chuck was going, is last year, our upgrades because of COVID and getting more, bandwidth and all like that. We were looking at that server surviving. We added some memory to it, I believe.
Yes, we did.
So, I guess that's a big part of the puzzle, is to find out how do we move forward with that server. That's an expense we can avoid because there's a better option. So I'll leave it to those of you who have decided to take this on, and the Lenhart group that we've hired to work with us for updates. But those are our options financially, should you need some equipment now. That trust fund could be utilized rather than going through operating budgets, which are probably getting pretty thin at the moment.
You guys just under 2,500.
And not a lot. So again, this dropped off the
That
radar.
fund is also the fund that takes care of that big printer in there, should that decide to crap out. So that technology fund is probably low.
Oh, it's definitely low, and it's probably pretty broad as far as what it will cover. I don't have the language in my head right off the top as to what that warrant article addressed, but, there again, technology, the money that goes into it, and the lifespan of is probably something we're going to need to add to our warrant article list and present to the budget. Tom, you had...
Yeah, I'm not, real computer savvy here, so I'm just trying to understand this. I know we put a lot of money into this computer system, correct? Like you said, I should be calling it Band-Aids, right?
I guess I want the definition of a lot of money.
Well, I don't have it right in front of me, but I know, I've seen, we put a lot of money into the computer system that I'm aware of. I guess you call them Band-Aids. Shouldn't we have started at the beginning and built a solid foundation, which I'm calling the server, and then build on that? I mean, just, to me, it's like, I know, but look at what we keep putting Band-Aids on Band-Aids on.
We had a lot of software.
Band-Aids that come off.
When you say technology system, it's not only hardware, but it's also software.
Okay.
We did a lot of software costs last year, putting in stuff in there. We didn't have in our system to help protect us. We now had that done. And that becomes an annual cost to keep that kind of thing updated.
Okay.
We added some components for backup capabilities to protect our data that we didn't have at all. That alone became called a Band-Aid. It was an add-on to an old system. The server software in there with Microsoft is only going to be upgraded by Microsoft one more year, and then it's gone. So we have such an old version of server software, we're about ready to go out of life code with Microsoft for that, and they will no longer support it.
That 2011 server software.
So the issue we've got is it's not just the hardware, there's also some software. The good news is because of the technology advances, having these big boxes with fans and everything else are not something we're going to have to deal with anymore. Even with the PCs. I mean, the PCs right now can be run off that box right there on a desk. So there's no reason to have stuff sitting under the desk or anything else. And they're cost effective. They're not big price things.
Well, yesterday when you said, Ryan, when I was in there and guy from Lenhart was in there, you had brought up the server part of it. And you said that's about $8,000 for a new server.
That was the last cost to estimate that you had. I believe Claudia got that. I haven't looked at the cost of a server.
And that's if you use that design from 2 years ago. Technology's moved totally different since then.
Yeah, I'm just going all over.
It's
That's why it kind of took me by surprise on it.
We wouldn't use that design, Tom.
No.
And actually, there was a design at one point in time where we thought we'd do away with the server and just use the Synology and cloud. That technology is now old.
What's replaced it?
What's replacing it is that size server.
Those are solid state boxes. There's no hard drives don't move anymore. There's no more fans. There's no more. It's all like a big USB drive at terabyte or multiple terabyte levels. So it's like enough storage to do everything this town's going to need to do for quite a few years. And totally cost effective right now because of the advances in the technology. That kind of stuff wasn't even around 2 to 3 years ago. You were still dealing with the old hard drive designs.
But you still need to do the cloud backup, which is costly in its software also. Because the problem with the solid state drive is when the solid state drive chokes and no longer just dies, you lose all your data that's on it. At least on the old type that spun, you could recover a lot of the data if that crashed. So you definitely need to have your cloud backup, so if your solid state storage dies on you, you've got the cloud.
And we've got double.
But that's different. When I was talking hardware, Chuck's right, software was expensive. We did spend a lot of money on getting the right software, because you weren't even backing up to a cloud even though you were paying for it, because the cloud that you were paying for wouldn't take the data that you had. And your software, your protection was basically zero. So you could get all kinds of infections. The software we have now is what caught whatever came in with the download yesterday morning. They caught that and quarantined it right out. A year ago, that wouldn't have happened, and we'd have been in serious trouble.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, sure, Dave.
We spent, with Tom, a large amount of money with the contract. Probably thinking about, that was something new that we hadn't had before. We spent money on.
Yeah.
When they do this maintenance by the contract that we signed for the computer, is that company, I thought, gonna give us recommendations when things needed to be changed?
And they will.
So isn't that a plan?
It is if we've asked for it. I don't think we've asked for it.
I thought that was in the contract that I read.
No, it was like it's an option for them to be able to do it, but we haven't asked them to physically do the work.
So they're maintaining all our equipment for that large amount of sum every year, and they're not telling us
Well,
whether things need to be changed?
They're maintaining the equipment, they're doing the software upgrades on a regular basis that we were never doing before.
Right, I understand that, Chuck.
So part of their quarterly is coming in and making sure that the Microsoft Windows software is up to date, all of the cybersecurity software is up to date, all of the software that supports the video cards for the screens is up to date.
They're not telling us if they think we should have an upgrade in certain hardware?
But even if you bought brand new hardware today, you still have to do those upgrades.
I understand.
On a periodic basis.
I'm talking about the hardware that Brian brought up, so that isn't part of the contract, I guess I just need to know that.
I think to address what you're talking about, I think this is kind of capturing it, is they did do a review of everything we had in place, as they, was mentioned earlier. So they did give us a breakdown of what we have and basically where it is.
Well, they identified the risk and then we solved the risk.
So they did let us know that we had issues coming up with the server, which we did understand, but they gave us more lifetime on it so we could get our ducks in a row with whatever way we wanted to pursue that, along with a review of all the computers and their timeline age-wise. So they didn't actually build us a plan going forward as to what we should do. We didn't ask.
We didn't ask for that.
But they did review all the equipment and let us know that you're going to need to do something. And so I guess that's probably where, as far as we got with a lot of interactions we've had with them, to keep things running and to do certain reviews of equipment going virtual this year because of COVID, to do a lot of off-site stuff. They worked on that, to work with us on trying to get this video option out to the public, getting us equipment in here to do that, and waiting on Consolidated to finish their piece.
They also helped a tremendous amount, which I didn't know they were gonna do, with Consolidated, working through the plan with Consolidated, and actually cut the cost of Consolidated's proposal to some extent. They're also still interacting with Consolidated, trying to make sure the equipment comes in, Consolidated initially for one thing, they called me and said, you gotta do a drop for every location as a phone. That's fairly expensive, you gotta hire an electrician to come in and run wires to do drops. After Lynn Hart talked to him, they said, well, where there's a location where there's a computer, you don't have to do a drop. Or if there's already a hard line there. Wherever you're putting a phone, there's a hard line. So they were the ones that negotiated that, and that's part of that contract with them too. That was at no cost to us, and outside the contract. So they do a lot of stuff. Have I asked them to put a plan together yet? No, because I was not sure I had a direction from the board on how they might want to go with the plan. And also technology was changing so fast that Will Linhart told me that by the time I'm going to give you a plan, we're going to give you another plan.
Well, and again, I think initially when I saw the cost of all this, it pretty much struck me. But I also saw that our computers were failing in the office and locking up, and we were having difficulties doing business. And we got through that, and we had several stages of things for Linhart to take on. So they've done a lot over the last year. That's without a doubt. They've done a lot of things here and probably most of them were unanticipated at the time. So I guess we've shifted a lot of the direction to meet the needs of the day, and the question never got asked, and a plan was never built. But it sounds like that's where we are right now, right? Like with getting this uploaded and done, and the discussion about replacing equipment. It sounds like that's the new discussion.
Dave, also to cover Linhart, because we'd have never gotten this, it's taken us forever to get it fixed. About 3 weeks ago, everybody except 2 of us lost email connection. We no longer could do anything with email. That doesn't sound too important to you, all of a sudden to think that 95% of the tax collector and town clerk's operation right now is being conducted through email. They couldn't get any. I won't go into what caused that, but within a couple of hours, Linhart had the system fixed and back up and running. Offline we'll talk about what we suspect happened. But that would have never happened if we'd have been out of business collecting money for I don't know how long before we found someone that figured out what the problem was. So the contract is well worth it.
It has nothing to do with that. The assumption, and I fully agree that we need someone to do that, but the assumption when we got the contract, for me, sitting on the budget committee, was they looked at all our equipment, gave us recommendations, which is true.
To fix the problem we had.
I assume they gave us long range, you're gonna need to change that survey, you're gonna need to change this or that. That's what I assumed based on everything that I heard and I read and all the amount of money that we spent, 20 grand or whatever, that we spent to upgrade everything. So, we have a long ways to go.
We didn't spend anywhere near
Yeah, plus 10 or whatever, I just use that as a number.
Yeah, but it's a number that's on tape, so we didn't spend anywhere near
That's a fictitious number.
Okay.
But just for that large amount of money that we spent, I expected that. Everything I heard was they had looked at all our infrastructure, determined that we needed more servers, more routers, more modems, whatever, and told us what we had to do, and then they started building on what we could do and upgrading. I understand about the software, the upgrades, and the maintenance they're maintaining. It was the hardware that I expected was part of that contract. That surprised me.
I think that was really addressed though in to some level though, Dave, because we did get a router.
Dave, some of the stuff that they did to keep us operating.
Oh, I have no doubt about that,
And
Brian.
they did-
I'm not questioning that.
And they did replace a lot of hardware and tell us about the need to do stuff. And they did give us some ideas that were discussed. Did they give a written plan? No. But they talked about the server and the fact that it was probably only going to be good for another year or two. They talked about a possibility of going to mass storage and doing less expensive storage. I was here a year and a half ago and I had them come in and do that. in a year and a half, the technology has changed so drastically that we're looking at a totally different plan. We need to, but nobody is developing a long-range replacement plan. That's what I'm.
we are.
That's-
Yeah, we are.
You are, that's where,
As of this morning, we are.
that's where the conversation has gone now, but as far as the storage concerns with the, server and or the ability to go without a server, that was a discussion point, and that was brought to us and more or less left in our hands to kind of find a way forward with their advice as we decided to make a decision on it. And I think, you know, a replacement plan, if we have 6 10-year-old computers, I think they identified that. I don't, you know, they didn't tell us do 2 a year for the next, you know, that wasn't the discussion. They let us know that your technology's antiquated, you know, and now it's up to us to find our way forward, and if we need their advice, that's part of the contract. Because we can just reach out to them and say, hey, we're looking at buying 5 computers of this type, and they may say, you don't want to do that. You know, that will, before those purchases are made, we'll have that conversation with them, and they could say, that's not the computer for this, or you don't want to buy this amount right now. You know, any of the technical issues that might be associated with that will be part of them. They will be involved with it. But we didn't get a step-by-step going forward over time. That was probably a little premature to ask at the time because of budgets. We were just getting into what we needed here and how to keep things running. So for them to give us that at that time might have been a lot to ask for. And I'm not sure that we were prepared to act on it. Oh, Chuck.
2 things. So even with a new proposal, new upgrade, it doesn't mean we trash everything we have, because a lot of the software we paid to upgrade is transferable. The redundancy backup system we bought last year, if I remember a conversation I had with Brian, they were already thinking ahead. So chances are a portion of the new plan is going to incorporate a couple pieces of the new equipment we bought last year. Routers, backup storage. So it's not 100% throw it out the window and have to design it from scratch. It's really a redesign from a strategy standpoint of what we want to have happen, and then look at the current technology hardware that will allow us to do that job.
All right, I want to move on because I think we had somebody scheduled to come in for 11.
That's a reschedule.
Oh, okay, all right then. If this needs to be further reviewed now, or should we catch up on this? Yeah, okay.
We'll keep David loop.
Yeah, well, it's an ongoing,
Yep.
so it'll be a budgetary issue, I'm sure, as it, that's what I've heard. So, all right, Tom, you had anything?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, are you folks done? Audrey, are you?
I'm done.
Okay. Hey, my bad, Mr. Hart, sir.
I just want to, we found out, and no one's mentioned it yet, but I'll bring it up and then you guys can touch on it later on. The Bailey Road project was approved. And I just want to say, as a selectman and a taxpayer, that I know you guys, you two, Chuck and Mike, put countless hours into this project. I mean, you can imagine how many hours they did. I didn't have a lot to do with it. I just want to say thanks, guys. I mean, that was incredible. The work, the amount of time and effort you guys both put into this, and it's approved.
Mike did most of the heavy lifting. So what Tom's referring to is the feasibility study, where we got a major grant from the state to do that work, $75,000. At last year's March town meeting, we voted to raise and appropriate $900, which was our projected interest cost of that money while the feasibility study is being done. Once the study is done, then they will come back with recommendations on a redesign for that bridge area, and we'll take it from there when we get that information.
I'm going to add to that too that because Province Lake is an impaired lake, a lot of what's being done, and thank you, Tom, for throwing that our way.
Thank you, really. I mean, it's a big deal.
But a lot of the ecology and the health of the lake is a big focus on the group that's come in to do the work. So it's more than just a physical structure. There's a lot more going on there. We did have 8 engineering companies bid on that. So that would really put Effingham on the map as far as getting the attention of some really top outfits in the state to come forward. I would say, to your end, you participated a pretty good amount of time when we hit that after the elections, that all that stuff kicked in, and we had countless meetings on that. So don't sell yourself short. And the same for Chuck.
And the meetings aren't over.
The meetings are just about to start again. But I think it's the diversity in our board. We all bring a little something different than each other to the table, which I think is very constructive. And I am not the technology whiz that, say, Audrey or Chuck here happens to be. And Chuck set up all the contacts with all the engineering companies, 8 of, the Dropbox for information sharing, coordinated with 2 or 3 of the reps from the state level. So there was a ton of work that he would lock himself in a room and be on his computer doing for like the entire day. So for him to say that I, threw it all my way, it's the furthest thing from the truth. So thank you both for all your help on that. Hopefully that yields some good results.
All right. Last week, when I looked at the fire station, I need some new fascia's going to happen. That T111, so much rotted out in the peaks. The roof's okay. It's old, but it's okay. And Chuck actually went down, also looked at it. He had a couple options going over to T111. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I think we need to get a proposal from a couple people on what they would recommend for those fixes and repairs.
Yeah.
Because both of the gable ends, the T111 is in tough shape. At least one side of it, the side facing the generator, as you face the library on the left side, that fascia board is in tough shape pretty much all the way across it. Needs to be replaced. The one on the Pantry side wasn't in bad a shape, but there were 2 or 3 areas where exhaust fans were coming out through the wall and they immediately jumped right up underneath the roof. So it's basically rotting out the whole edge of the roof, like right there. So there is some stuff that needs to be done. And whether we do it with a replacement of wooden clapboards, or we look at doing something with metal, or even there's no reason why we couldn't use vinyl siding.
Yeah.
I mean, that is up in an area, and we don't have to worry about it. And we could actually metal wrap the fascia boards, and we wouldn't have to worry about rot ever again. So there's different. I guess we need to get a couple proposals,
Right.
outline. Here's what we want you to bid on, and then put it out and see what we get for numbers.
So what is behind the T111? Is there wood behind that, or is that a fixed to metal?
It looks like it's fixed to whatever the,
Stick built.
stick built.
So we might have some additional rock behind it.
Could be, yeah, no.
Could have. Yep, don't know.
So I guess then, hearing Chuck's thoughts on this, maybe we should narrow it down to what we'd like to see there.
I think we can have a list, but then put it out to a couple people to give us some quotes on what it is. We need a bit of a mini RFP.
Yeah,
You can wrap it over with metal. We can wrap the fascia if we want, that was feasible. And you can wrap it in metal, have it paint again. Like Chuck mentioned, vinyl siding. He also brought the metal that they're putting on now. It's also decorative too, but, they won't have to be painted either.
well, that's what I guess.
Looking for low cost.
Well, that's what I'm looking for, is a direction to say, this is what we want, because we've identified this would be long-term, the suitable goal here, maintenance-free. So if you had that, we could just go with it and make that the RFP.
Tom and I will work on getting some bullet points on
Okay,
that, and then we'll review it at the work session next week.
great.
We'll get it out.
So since you said work session next week, don't mean to jump in on you, but while that thought's fresh, do we want to schedule something?
I thought we had something.
We have a 2:00 Board of Selectmen's meeting on Monday because we have the audit coming in.
And according to our calendar, we have a work session after that.
Work session after that. Okay. Would you like to do a work session before it? Because Brian is going to be preparing, or Barbie is going to be preparing the manifest. That's why we're having a meeting at 2 p.m. I'm just looking for people's scheduling, what works best for others. Come in at 10 on Monday, and
Yeah, we could do that.
then we can try to
Do a work
address
session up front.
personnel policies, budgets.
Yep.
All right,
We could do 10.
okay, thank you sorry for the interruption, Tom.
No, Consolidated's here now.
Yeah.
The hole's all drilled in there and all that, so they're running that now. She was gonna call me and tell me when they were coming out,
Oh, good.
but apparently,
Don't leave your phone too far away, you might want to miss that call.
yeah.
Oh, good, good.
Great. Oh, you're gonna get me today, didn't you? Yeah, and like, Brian was saying, Consolidated, when I talked to girl, it took a week to get back to me on this, what size hole we needed. That's all I was looking for at the time. And it took a week, and she finally called on Monday when I was down here with Strojan, and, she told me what they needed and all that, and then it was going on with fake phone tag back and forth, and finally I just said, listen, we need the stuff done, it's been ongoing, the hole's in there, the outlets, Brian's had the outlet put in for you, everything's there, she goes, we got an email from Brian saying the outlet was there. I said, well, let's get some wires run to the building, notify the selectmen, me or the other selectmen, and she took my home number also, and give us progress reports as what you're doing, where's it going, time frame wise. I don't care if they're daily, just get this done. They're here, so, let's hope that finishes up. But there's other things after they run this line, and there'll be another coming out, people coming out to install the equipment. These guys are just the wire guys, and there'll be equipment guys coming out that manages that.
You were out of the room, and we kind of heard there's 12 different departments.
Okay, good, then you got it covered, well, anyway, then there's a kickoff setup meeting. Did you get that one?
No,
Oh, yeah, there's a kickoff setup meeting too, that will be involved in all this.
Abbreviated version.
I fell asleep and missed it.
Well, I'll like having a couple of years when they're finishing up here. Anyway, like I said, we had Tom Phoenix from Clean Harvest was coming in today.
Yeah.
He called, rescheduled it. When he made the appointment with me, he forgot he was on vacation this week, so his wife reminded him. So, he'll be coming in next week's meeting. I still have to call him to get an exact time, but he will be in to explain the oil contamination and all that through the oil process. How it works, how it goes, and what it'll cost.
Okay.
So we'll get another date and time for him,
Yeah,
oil collection update.
yeah. And I haven't brought this up in a few weeks. It's actually kind of good news today. The tax delinquency
There he is.
is $497,370. That's as of today. Back on August 24th, it was $573,000. So we've actually come down $75,000 roughly from August, which is a good thing.
Long way to go.
So, yeah, a long way to go, but not all doom and gloom.
Well, I think if half of that money came in, when I did a calculation for the USDA follow-up on some funding on the whole bridge, there was a mix-up in some numbers for them. We could potentially pay our bills in the calendar year for the calendar year. Scary thought. I don't think that's ever been done before, or at least not in my time. Wishful thinking. I could see Dave smiling under his mask. People won't be able to see that, but he's over there. He's all excited and happy.
I'm good.
All right, last week we talked about the Carroll County Broadband Committee and the fact that, we need to get a warrant article for our town to officially say, yep, we want to be part of the planning process, next year. And I did get a letter from the chair, Rick Highland, who's also the chair of the Albany Selectmen. And he said he would like to see in the minutes a vote of this select board that we're willing to move forward with putting the warrant article together. I'd like to make a motion that we approve moving forward to put together a warrant article for the March town meeting to see if we are willing to be part of the feasibility study, no cost to us, other than volunteer time of 2 people, of which I'm gonna be one.
Okay, now Christine, you got that needs to go into the minutes?
Yep.
And that's for the broadband, and Mr. Fuller made the motion. Is there a second to Mr. Fuller's motion?
I'll second that motion.
I figured you'd want to get your name down for, history here of bringing broadband to Effingham, so. All right.
Fuller, aye.
I'm not anticipating any discussion, so you guys are already ahead of me. All right, Cahalan, aye.
All right, Coker Hill Road, one of the things we talked about in a recent meeting was the width of the road and starting to plan for next year's replacement of Snow Road Bridge if everything works out okay. I went out with some laser measures the other day, and there's only one point that's actually less than 20 feet, and it's on Coker Hill, and it's on the bend. So it goes between 18 and 19 and a half feet on the width. There is a chunk of ledge there that chokes it to that 18 point. And there's a utility pole that's driven in at the top end of that with a guy wire right down in the ledge. So I'm not sure what we may or may not be able to do with the part of the ledge without having to move that guy wire. But we are about 5 to 6 feet away from the stone wall on the other side of the road on the gentleman's property. So if we needed to widen the road right there, I think we could do that to solve that. It's still a minor concern relative to visibility because the way you come into it and that left-hand side of the road is between the ledge and the bushes, it's tall. You don't get to see a lot of way up the road. You literally see the corner as you're coming into it. So I think we need to get Ron out there to take a look at it and say, what might we have to do and what would it cost?
Do you have a poll number by the chance?
No, but I get it.
Okay, because if, I can kind of get him and myself into the right location if you have a poll number.
All right.
Probably very selfish. You probably can't miss
You
it.
can't miss it.
Okay.
Once you get to that corner and you look to your left, you see it. The other item that I think Ron will probably want to address, there is about a 12-inch maple leaning over the road. It's on the road side of the stone wall. His people have partially dug it out in the past with the grader, and it's one of those things like if you had two large vehicles going side by side, one of them's going to clip that. And for snow plowing, he usually marks yellow tape around it so his guys don't hit it with the plow. It sticks out that far. So my assumption is he'll probably want to take that one down. And
What's probably been the hang-up is it's leaning towards the wires or something?
no, there's no wires.
Oh, nice.
It's literally just leaning out across the road. I got an email this weekend from Jason Earl on Lord's Hill. He watched two trucks and campers pull over to the right side of the road as they were headed south, just this side of the little fire station, underneath the wires that are hanging too low. One of them managed to snag the phone wire with a ladder, and it's now about 8 feet off the ground, where it was all the wire wrap that holds it onto the main guide wire basically broke, and now the phone line is actually hanging down about 8 feet off the road. We do need to reach out to Consolidate it again, and I'm wondering if because it's a hazard, should we put that through the police department?
Well, first off, how did you make out with reaching out to Consolidated or Eversource or whoever's got claims to that whole Eversource, I think it was?
I was not aware that I was the person to call.
Pretty sure a couple meetings back you were going to make the calls, and I thought you actually did at one point, no?
I think
No.
I did, actually. I think I made that call.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I reported it, and I never got a date or time they were gonna come out, but she said, they would
Because
just put the
I did
report in.
go up and look, it's an Eversource pole
Right,
that needs to be replaced.
and that was the follow-up to the meeting where I thought the office was taking that one. So here's, just on that note, a couple things. I think I would contact District 3, DOT, and let them know since it's along 153 that this exists, and it's hampering the, fire station, being able to get in and out with fire equipment, and also
normal traffic patterns are impaired.
Well, to throw it all on the plate, or whatever you've got to add to that conversation, and let District 3 know, call Eversource, again, and then, there's a Utilities Commission. I think, you tell Eversource you're calling them, because this has been about 9 months now that this pole has been missing, and it's been interfering with fire, apparatus, and you're not doing anything, we keep reporting it. So those are what I would like to see. You know, if that's off the top of my head where to go with it. And if District 3 gets involved, maybe they'll put some pressure on them too. Maybe they've had more experience at this than us to get a response. But so those are the 3 avenues, Chris, if you get those. And if you put those in the minutes, so the next time this comes up, I can say, wait a minute, Brian.
It may be in the minutes on who was supposed to do it the last time.
Yeah, I think,
Too much work.
no, I think this sounds very familiar.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, I traded emails with,
If I may, before
Yeah,
you
go
move
ahead.
on to the next one, just back to the Culford Hill, we can certainly have, Ron, you know, make that a little wider off that side to serve its purpose
well, I
at
think,
that time.
we want to take a look at it and find out what the job's gonna take and which way is the best way to solve the job.
And ultimately, should we need to take some of that ledge though, that's in the right of way, we can insist that the utilities company move that pole, or if we dislodge the guideline in there to take out ledge, then there again, they can, you know, have to do it.
Ultimately, we should take some of that ledge out of there. The ledge is
Oh, yeah,
impeding
the water
the
runoff.
ditch flow.
Yeah.
And when it comes down over the hill, it hits that. If it's going fast enough, all it does is shoot right out across the road. It doesn't go down. So even though they try and put the grader down around it to create a ditch, when if we get a really heavy rainstorm, there's so much water that it washes the road out right there.
And this has been something I've been looking at for the last couple of years, but what we don't have available and haven't made a commitment to rent is a hammer drill to excavate some of that ledge. And part of the concern was, do we have other areas so that if we did this, we could hit that area and then maybe somewhere else?
Champion Hill.
And the potential was that we had some work on Champion Hill. So I guess that'll be another follow-up with Ron as far
On
as
the subject.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I traded emails with the principal of the Effingham Elementary School about, marking for our tent. And I'm gonna be doing that after the meeting today. So I'll go over and put the 4 little tags in for DigSafe, and then I'll let Chris know to call DigSafe. In the last, week, we submitted 2 additional grant letters for the Historic Town Hall project. We did a fall foliage drone shoot of the area, and I actually just passed out a couple of those pictures today. There were stills. Chris had an idea that maybe the upper one would be something we want to put on the town report this year, but that's for discussion. And, within the last couple of days, Lenny Esty brought up a check, from the Charter Oak Masonic Lodge for $10,000
Wow.
to go toward the Historic Town Hall project. That additional amount of money puts us now at 79% of our $150,000 goal for the year, which is good.
Could you explain a little more how we got this check? Like, how did this get generated? The Masonic Lodge?
The Masonic Lodge that's in the building is Charter Oak Masonic Lodge.
Yeah.
Their membership looked at their finances and determined that, you know, because we're doing a lot of work on the building, that they would like to chip in as much as they could, and the number figure they came up with was $10,000.
Oh, nice.
So, and if we're successful with our LCHIP grant, matching grant, which we'll know about within the next couple of weeks, this money may be used to match, which means it would basically double. So, it's all good news from that standpoint. So we thank the Freemasons of the Charter Oak Lodge for their contribution toward the restoration of the historic town hall. A reminder, for Mr. Cahalan, and I will remind the guys at the
Tomorrow.
First Nation, tomorrow morning, I will become the moderating teacher of a CE class for Transfer Station annual CE credits at the town library. I am aware that the results of the October, the letters that went out by Avatar in September, early October about calling in for people, I am now aware that some of those discussions have resulted in additional letters coming back to people with adjustments on whatever their discussion was relative to their reevaluation of their property values.
Can I back you up to the training? Is it gonna be things that go bang? Is
No.
that what I saw? No?
No, we're gonna be sitting in front of the TV screen.
Yeah, but what does the subject matter?
We're gonna decide that when you get there. You've got a choice of 4 different on-demand videos. What would you like to see?
I thought it was things that go bang. I thought.
No, there's actually, Tara was basically kind enough to provide me
The ones that.
a review of all of your schedules, so you didn't have duplicate credit where you wouldn't be able to use it. And she said, here are the 4 videos you can take to solve it, and we'll do that tomorrow morning. I took the opportunity to review the HEB submission for the DES, looking at their engineering plans and whatever, so that was an interesting read last week. We did finish getting the new heating system installed in the town office. The pellet boiler and the storage tank are for sale if anybody's interested in that. Contact the Selectmen's office, and we are also going out to a company that actually sells secondary equipment along these lines, and Mike's been working with them on that.
Well, can I jump?
Ken?
Thank you. This is the company that solicited us in the past, so I'm going to put this.
American Equipment Company, right?
Yeah, American Equipment, Group Incorporated, so I'm gonna put this with the folders. This came through the office prior. I did send 10 photos, 2 separate emails, because, they can only get so many of those photos on, to the office this morning, which are the generic, Effingham, New Hampshire.net, Brian, town of Effingham. So those should be on there that you can forward those pictures, which is what they want. And it's of the silo and the boiler. I think it contains everything they want to see, and they'll come back with a price potential to tell us who to forward it to. Yeah, it has an email right on there, and I did have a phone conversation 2 weeks ago or something with a gentleman over there. So they're, to some level, anticipating we're gonna send them something. And, at which point, if they give us an offer that we want, I believe they'll come out and just pick this stuff up. It's pretty painless. So I would like to believe. We'll find out. Anyway, I'll discuss the boiler later in more depth.
And my last item, on Saturday, Grace and I dropped into the fire department open house, walked around, had a good discussion with, one of the paramedics, first name Mason, about, the job and the equipment and things like that. They actually had the transport vehicle that they use for Memorial Hospital down there for visibility piece. That is an impressive piece of equipment. Can actually carry 2 stretchers at a time. It's got a full second jump seat. It's just a really nice equipment. I will say it was also very nice to see the enthusiasm of the employees about working for Action Ambulance. So from a town standpoint, we've got a very good quality service from these folks, and they demonstrate it every day. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chuck. Unfortunately, I wanted to get down there for that demonstration, but, I had a little automotive issues with my wife's vehicle. Taking the gas tank out of a CRV.
Should've used the jaws of life, should've seen it.
I'm telling you, that vehicle's ready to.
Hey, I would have done it easy.
Yeah. Jaws will like it to death. So, oh yeah. Another air conditioning, started with the air conditioning compressor, that went. And then I found the gas leak and the rack and, Anyway, my day didn't work out as I had planned, so glad that went off well. On following up on the ambulance though, the reports that I've gotten from about Action Ambulances, they're out of the chute in like a minute or less, which is getting off the property. And I know we had reports in the past of being 12 minutes before a previous company left the chute. So everything I've heard about Action Ambulance is great. We had John Hatch in here a while back because he was concerned that too many ambulances were at one fire, and maybe there wasn't appropriate coverage in other areas. And that's when we found out that that transport vehicle was actually not part of our contract, was moved down from Memorial Hospital to a strategic pre-planned position. And when the first ambulance went out, all ambulance shift for coverage. And although we contracted 3 pieces of equipment, they had 5 pieces of equipment involved that day. 3 separate calls went out, all were covered, and there was backup coverage for all the area. So just an incredible change in how they treat the situation here. And one of those ambulances that was caused a stir wasn't even part of our contract. It was just John Hatch himself and one of his other guys. They got in an ambulance, went to a fire as firefighter recovery, and they were backing up. And that conversation came about that ambulance wasn't sufficient for the task at hand. So from there, Action Ambulance, with no cost to the 6 towns, bought a box truck, did a frame lock restoration, and they're building from the ground up a firefighter recovery truck with all the bells and whistles and things they need for a major fire on scene to deal with firefighters who are suffering from exhaustion and resupplying oxygen, water, ice, everything under the sun. So very happy with how this has turned out for us. Let's see, moving on. I do have to make some calls to the state health officers department because we have a resident in town who has run afoul of some issues with the town, basically laws and regulations and such. So as a response, this person has been reaching out to the state health office, concerned that there's all things that are dealing with the health officer's appointments are not legal. So this has been brought to the state before, same person, and as a response, Sophia Johnson of the health department sent back, can you please speak to how the process around Mr. Cowan was nominated? So she wants that from us, but that was a board decision here, which happens every so many years. We decide who does what for the town, and that appointment was made by the 3 of us. You guys,
I think that's in the minutes too.
I'm sure there's some, and that's the claim, and it's not. It's probably in minutes, and with that, Mr. Hart was nominated and approved as the deputy health officer, and we filed all the appropriate paperwork, which is attached here for that and provided to the state. The state went through their process, in which is written here. This is all that is required on our end to appoint a health officer, which is the review of their files to see everything that's attached. And that's pretty much it from the state. Tom is appointed, I'm appointed, and that was processed by the board. We received no compensation for this lovely extra duties. We're volunteers, it's listed here, so.
So it raises out of the question.
What's that?
Raises out of the question.
I heard Dave was gonna approve doubling our pay for that.
Really?
Yeah.
From 0 to double 0.
Right. So, moving on, I will reach out to Mr. Evans and report, 1, 2, 3, I have about 6 items on the list to see where we're at. Probably add just general grading to that for 7 items to get caught up on. I usually reach out to him Tuesday mornings But as I was just making it under the wire, that didn't happen today.
And we still have one culvert flowing on Snow Road.
I will put, he's,
Yep.
yeah, I guess the individual who usually addresses that has been really difficult to catch up with. They've actually, Ron sent, somebody to his house a couple of times to try and make, that connection, but so far has failed to catch up with him, and the phone has not worked out well, because I think it's just a landline, and he's not getting messages there at this point in time. Okay, Snow Road culverts. And, on the boiler, I know this has probably been one of those things for some folks. The boiler went in, I don't know, 7 or so years ago. Why are we changing it? So I just wanted to cover that briefly. We have experienced that when we get a full load of pellets, they break down over time and it becomes dust issues and such. And they don't feed that well, and sometimes they don't feed at all, in which case that's a maintenance call. So that's a bit of a problem in that there's only one individual anywhere near us to do maintenance is another issue. The next place is Milford, New Hampshire, which you can't really expect to get a service call. Somebody's on site for 2 hours, but 6 hours of driving, that's not really great on the bottom line. And we've had a lot of maintenance expenses over the last 6 years. It needs cleaning every year, but it also needs the ashes taken out on a weekly basis when we're in the cooler weather. And if those ashes aren't removed from it, it shuts down because it blocks an electric eye. So it shuts the unit off. That becomes problematic. My understanding at the time it was purchased was it was somewhat undersized. That's the update we got when we looked at this. It was undersized, and that probably explains why Chris and others have little heaters under their desk in the off seasons, which is kind of another issue for us. And again, the dust in the utility room is just ridiculous. It's just not something I think is healthy personally. But another part of the clean-out process didn't seem to include the vent that goes up to the roof. And that backed up last year and blew apart the vent lines. And it probably, as that fills, it's got to be killing the efficiency on that unit, I would expect. And as Brian, you've noted before, that we don't want to have people on this roof because some contractors said, if you go up there and you damage the roof at all, it's going to be a huge amount of money to fix the roof here. It's a flat roof. So to get up there and clean that out, that vent is a problem. So that wasn't covered. And we had to have people go up and effect repairs. So ultimately, the unit is probably great in theory and would probably work really well at the right location, but we determined that this isn't the right location for it. So that's pretty much most of why this is being done. We've gone to a propane unit. It's very high efficiency. It'll be clean. It's taking up a considerably less amount of space in the utility room, which now when the trash gets picked up around here for the weekly pickup, it won't end up in the hallway where the public normally would travel pre-COVID, and or in the kitchen area here where everybody likes to have their refrigerator and make their lunches and stuff. So now the trash can probably actually be kept in that separate locked off area. Other than that, I don't have a lot more to impart about the reasons why we did what we did, but that's pretty much it, unless anybody else thinks there's more to cover on that. Okay, well, again, I just wanted to make sure we got that out there because that wasn't an old boiler. Probably we'll have some discussions later on, budget committee, things will come up. All right, the USADA for the Snow Road Bridge, those funds, I really hope by the end of the month that will be done because all the requests for information have been supplied from HEB and from myself this past month, and I think we can expect to be approved any day now. So that would be nice. We have all the contract has been sent out, and that's not going to keep us from approval, but the USDA is reviewing the contract. We have contractual changes put in on behalf of the USDA, upgraded by HEB, and that, as soon as that comes back, that will be going out to the contractor, who's, as far as I know, prepared to sign it. So everybody can sign it, and we can have that one just waiting to go in the spring, and we'll get the materials paid for so that they can pre-design those and prep them for installation spring. On that, we have touched on the audit coming in next week. And with that, Brian, did you prepare the 434? We had worked on that. That was pretty much good to go. Do we need to sign that?
It's signed and it's uploaded.
Okay, so that one went in. And from that, the 535 now, what's the status on that? Do we
Need to complete that and send that in, now the estimates.
Okay, just the estimate side, right? All right, so then we should be able to do that. Basically, it's the 434 repeat form, so. All right, we'll get those done. And the MS1 Gwen had taken care of today, so it looks like we're getting on track with our dealing with.
123 was uploaded yesterday.
Oh, they're 123? And that one is kind of an unusual one. We don't have a lot, I don't have a lot of exposure with that one.
It just lists everybody that has any position with the town. The DRA requests it every year.
Okay.
I put it together, almost went blind doing it, and then when I got to the very end of it, because they sent me the email saying that it was due, got to the very end of it, and it was Deanna that was supposed to read it. She was very happy I had gone blind doing it. She signed it and uploaded it yesterday.
All right. So we'll work on the 535. And then just so the two of you know, that Health Trust, I did get that done after we spoke a week or so ago. Followed up. It didn't take initially, but it's in, it's done. So access has been preserved. And anytime you need to upgrade your status as well as your access, we should be able to do that. I probably need to update your status as far as getting you into the system. But as far as benefits and stuff, you guys are.
I had to complete the paperwork.
Okay.
Audrey and I have talked about that a little bit. She's not gonna be here the first week in November, but we're gonna transfer all of that stuff to her name the second week in November. That'll also get us by the COVID, so we don't have to go through the drill of changing who has signature authority on COVID, which I really don't wanna do.
Okay. As long as you work that out to your comfort level with the process and, you know, your timeline.
And I think probably I'm going to leave her to her own desires the end of the second week in November.
Oh, thrown to the wolves, huh? How do you feel about that?
I'm ready. It's actually difficult. I'm finding it more difficult to do two jobs. So, you know, I feel like we're just like getting training and then I'm gone. So,
Well, what about the timeline for training? Brian stays with you for 1 week. Do you think you'd want to have him stay longer, or how?
well, you're still going to be on call, right? That was my understanding.
I might come up a couple days a week
Okay.
rather than 4 days a week.
Okay. As long as you're available and you, personally, I let you folks work that out to whatever works for the two of you. Okay.
I don't want to stay around so long that I'm a hindrance, because Audrey brings Audrey's ideas. She doesn't need to be working with my ideas.
All right, well, I was just thinking for the, you know, the nuts and bolts of the operation and how access to things.
I'm a phone call away, and probably I'll still have remote access for a period of time, so if she gets wound up with something,
Jump in. And with that, all the appropriate passwords and accesses, those were supposed to be, you know, put in the safe or whatever you have. All that information is available for Audrey?
It will be.
It will be, okay. Right? Moving on.
she has to invest in something first.
I know. All right, so with that, I think the only other business that we have that I'd like to talk about. And if this gets, to the point of some tedium, we can move on and do it in a work session. But it would be today, would be our budgets. So we wanna just do a review of the work session, the budgets in a work session, because when people come in, we can address it with them. So the only other thing would be to make sure people are scheduled to come in for these. Hi, Chris. Yeah, looking at you, girl. So for whoever's on our short list here coming up, which would be, town clerk, tax collector, treasurer, supervisors of the checklist, and budget committee, I think we can probably pass on a couple of these, being that the board is going to probably put some recommendations in on the treasurer. The budget committee, it seems fruitless to try and cut their budget on them. They'll just restore it. Supervisors of the checklist, I believe I have the answers we were looking for from, the chairperson, Ms. Fire, which I think is all straightforward. So, that just leaves, Deanna really to come in. That one will be easy, and the library, of course.
Like, you already signed town clerks and, you've already, and the tax collector, you've already signed them.
Well, right, so those are, and if we're still good with those, then they're done, so I'm fine with that.
Just so you know, I've already,
You
half
received
those
those?
to be put up for draft on the web.
Okay, I didn't know that those went to you.
You gave,
Did I? I can't remember things that long ago, Dave.
want me to tell you which ones you gave me you signed?
No, because I think if any more of them went out, we may need them back, unless they're just the first set that went through.
I want to give you the ones that you didn't sign.
What do I owe you? Yeah.
Supervisor, checklist, treasurer,
Yeah.
historic district.
Now, let me stop you here. This, the 1013 list, those have all been provided to you except for historic district. Is that correct? Forester, I probably may not have signed off on.
You did?
I did that, okay, because we had contact.
You did.
So planning board, ZBA, zoning officer, conservation commission, and forester, all from the 1013 schedule should have been done. The outlier there is historic district, who has not provided anything.
Yeah, I have not heard anything from him. I don't know what's going on.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly what I got, Chris.
well, that's not gonna be our problem. I guess that's a historic district's problem, so. And right now, don't even think they're functioning.
There was supposed to be a meeting on Monday. I didn't receive anything. I just saw it on the calendar.
I've been told that they haven't filed minutes since,
March
Chick
19th.
left. Yeah, March 19th, so. I don't think they're a functioning board anymore, or commission, so I don't know, I'll leave. I'm not chasing, Mr. Jones on that, and that can just go to the budget committee without anything from us. Unless we wanted to do something last year, their budget got cut pretty good, so. And Chuck, so you don't wanna touch it, I don't wanna touch it.
I mean, it was like $500, so it's like,
For clarification, who do I need to schedule meetings with? Not Deanna?
At this point, I'm going to say that there's nobody except for the library, and I think, Chuck, you had that one scheduled?
no,
Right.
what it is, Gracie's gonna do it by phone.
Okay. So I guess we just need a time to, have, Grace Fuller, present the library budget to us.
And are you gonna take care of that, Chuck, or would you like me to reach out?
Smart little.
Yeah,
And I wouldn't touch base with her till early next week, because she's up to her eyeballs in CIP reports right now.
Like, I sent her out that list of time and date that,
Okay, and so we have a date, did we have a scheduled date and time for her?
yeah, remember I emailed and sent it out to you?
Yeah, there we go. I'm at a loss.
You asked me to send it out to everybody?
And I didn't follow up on that one, I followed up on the first one, second one I didn't follow up on, because I reached out to everybody here with the exception of the library, so I thought that one was preferred.
I sent out a notice to everybody, time and date. You
Have it.
asked me to send out for the select board,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
so they did.
That was a week and a half ago, right, Dave? That was like a week and a half ago?
Yep.
Okay.
We did get those times and dates, and I sent it to all three of you plus the individuals,
Okay,
Chris.
so my concern here is that we moved the meeting, select board's meeting because of the audit. Is that going to interfere?
Probably will, but Grace is flexible.
No, the 14th.
No, today's the 14th, we was talking the 19th, because we weren't scheduled to talk with, Grace until the 20th. So, I guess, if you could schedule Grace in, potentially Monday the 19th, somewhere, 3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that, whatever works for Grace, because our meeting's starting at 2.
All right, and keep in mind, we have the Queen Harbor guy coming in too, so we gotta work around that.
That's why I was waiting till after the meeting to see what appointments we've already made, and then I'll tell him what time's good, and we'll figure that out.
All right.
And then you've got the police and the fire, we scheduled already too, Mike, that's in your email.
And what dates are those, do we know? That's still towards the 27th though, right?
Yes, they're scheduled for the 27th.
Okay, so I
And
guess,
have times on there that I sent to you guys too.
I guess, that means Chief Burbank, we need to talk to him, Chris, on when he's available to speak with us. And if he could do it next week as well, that would be fine on the 19th. And,
Move 'em up.
yeah, if we've got the open, I'd like to get a little cushion in case there's some, these are pretty big budgets and there might be a little back and forth here. So if we can get Randy, to come in, 4 o'clock or something like that on Monday. And, again, Lieutenant Duchesne to see what his availability is. I don't think we need to see him, next week though. I think we can keep, Joe on for the 27th. I know he's completed his budget, and if there's any changes to it, I'm expecting it from our end on things we want. Okay.
What about Mr. Firewood?
He submitted a budget. If he wants to come in, fine. It's like about $2,500. I don't think we were looking at having an issue there. Were we, anybody?
Gave you the information that I
Yeah, I
gathered from him on
do know the
Yeah, I'm good with that.
why the salaries, you were asking about that, that was just lieutenant training.
Yeah.
This is a pretty simplistic budget.
Yeah, so I did not have a problem, in needing to see, the fire warden. I would say that,
We can sign that one. You wanna sign that one, and give that to Dave?
yeah, we can do that as part of today's, review. So,
Probably the dog officer too, right?
yeah, but I'll wait for Lieutenant Duchesne to cover dog officer and police, because those are really under his. And then we'll have Chief Burbank in for fire rescue, emergency management in 911. So.
Treasurer, are you gonna do that?
Yeah, and we were looking at the numbers, and I had proposed making some changes, and I asked, the board members to give some thought to that if they found some time in their schedules to do so. So, I believe we were gonna leave $300 in for the bank charges and for basically bounce checks. Is everybody still good with that number?
Yep.
Okay. Financial banking supplies was $1, or just a placeholder, nothing at all, you're saying, Brian?
Yeah, I'd wipe it right out.
Okay, how's everybody with that? Everybody's, okay.
Cause you can always add it back in another year, placeholder.
That's fine, if we're not spending any money on it now. It'll highlight when we do, if we have to add it back in, that's for sure. And, I know there's gonna be changes here, or at least, the treasurer has announced that she was not looking for another term, and we had discussed it financially. That line has not been increased for a long time, and the constraints on somebody's time to come in, and that's like a Tuesday, Wednesday, you gotta be here kind of thing to do the checks. Wednesday night, so it's a demand on people's time. It's 52 weeks a year, and the treasurer then would be able to appoint someone to be the deputy, should they not be able to come in and take care of that. I suggested some changes. Anybody have any thoughts on the money on that?
No, I mean, it needs to be higher,
Okay,
500, $3,000 for the treasurer, I think.
all right. That's an interesting thought, is what if we put like $3,000 in for the treasurer's salary, and some portion of that can be broken out for the deputy? Just leave it at that until this changes are made, because we don't know if there's a deputy, who that is, but we could certainly move it. What do you think, Dave? Is that problematic for you?
Well, I know we had deputy only 4 times so far this year. I think it's Brian that put out. I think we only had the deputy come in 4 times. That's what you put out last week.
I think that's the best way.
So even if you went just placeholder $50 each time for showing up, I mean, that would be 26 and 200, 300, 400 under the other one.
I think that you ought to make provisions for a deputy, because if something happens to your treasurer,
Oh, no,
you need someone to sign.
we need to have a deputy, but since the likelihood that the deputy, whoever the treasurer is, appoints. So whether it's this individual wants to continue or not, that's gonna change. And considering that, as Dave says, if the person who's the deputy now comes in 4 times a year, the money on the budget line is disproportionate and should be adjusted. So that's why I was saying, if you have the treasurer, put the bulk of the money in under the treasurer, and if you need a $1 placeholder in your sheets, I don't know that you do, because these are just internal worksheets.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still, for review, you should put something that's reasonable to the amount that we've been seeing.
All right, so.
300, 2,700.
Okay.
What's gonna happen, and this is just thinking out loud, what's gonna happen if something happens to your treasurer, and now the deputy has to come in every week for 4 months?
Then the stipend should shift to that person, I would say. That's my short answer.
Exactly.
If you're doing the job, you'll get paid for it. I think any decent person is gonna say, I'm not coming in, so you're taking my shift, you get the pay. This, so I'm good with, 27,300. 2,700 for the treasurer.
300 under, yeah.
Right.
If you're going to do the stipend idea, why don't you put the treasurer and deputy on one line and put one amount? And I'm thinking for bookkeeping purposes now, because that means that whoever gets paid, it comes out of that line.
Well, there again, that could be done here as part of QuickBooks. And this is a budget sheet for budgeting. But it doesn't seem like it's a problem to me, unless maybe the budget committee would like to see these broken out this way. So, any thoughts on that, Dave, or would
We've
you?
always had it broken out, because we like to see salaries separate, so we can keep an eye on different positions.
Keep it broken out.
That's the way it always has been. It's more transparent to the
Yeah.
residents of what we're paying somebody.
Yeah, it also tells you what that position to be deputy is. Isn't it a lucrative position either? It's,
So you signing that for 3,300 total, Mike?
no, yes, sorry, I didn't add in the first column. So that's what I would suggest, if everybody's good with that, and that marks a reduction of, $1,400.
So I'll be able to get copies of it.
Yes. I'll just sign that one now, so we'll have it. All right. These are probably all in order, so you're saying the town clerk tax collector was already signed?
Yep.
All right, so we'll skip those two, Deanna. Library is up for next week, so we'll put that off to the side for next week's review. Supervisors of the checklist. This is the discussion I had with Ms. Carol Pfister, wasn't Ms. Byron, who had spoke to Cheryl Fyrick about this, who was the prior chair. The reason you went from $2,400 to $1,290 wasn't because there's 6 elections and then it being disproportionate when we expect, 4 elections, then you expect 2 next year, or just 1. It was actually, there's a stipend involved that was voted in some time back, so each individual gets $350 to be a part of the supervisor of the checklist. So that accounts for $1,050 of that $1,290. So it really just leaves $240 for them, or basically $80 a day for the election that's scheduled for next year, which to me was like, there's no cutting anything there, but at least now we know the answer. Mr. Burke.
Well, and I don't know if it is, supervisors of the checklist also get paid to go over to the, Governor Wentworth Regional School District elections to manage the checklist for voters from Effingham voting at that. I'm just wondering if you've included that in the cost.
I don't believe there's anything in there.
Because we have to pay that.
Okay. So there's only a salary line. There's nothing that reflects that they do something at the school district.
Who goes to this, can you say that again?
When you have an election at the Governor Wentworth Regional School District, it has to be supervisors of the checklist from each of the towns that are part of the school district to check off voters going in to vote from those towns. We pay, I can't remember, I think it's 10 hours, and I can't, without going and looking it up. We pay those people to go over there and do that. That's the responsibility of each of the towns to pay their own supervisors. And I learned about that when I had to pay them this year.
So how many of the gals go over?
I'd have, I'd have to look it up.
You know, if we've already got a record of here's what it takes and they've got to go over,
Yeah.
why don't we use that number and add it on here?
Well, and the hourly wage they put down here is really big money, $10 an hour.
And I think that's what we pay them. I think it's probably $100, but I don't want to be held to that. I think it's 10 hours at $10 an hour.
Oh, that's surprising to me because, they haven't exceeded their budget for every year that we've given it to. So, I don't know if that comes out of the stipend part of it, or, so why wouldn't they have exceeded their budget if that's true?
Yeah, the actual in 2019 was under $800.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I look at the budget, the actual form, and they're always less than what we budgeted, a little bit. So, I would assume that's coming out of the amount.
Let me look up
Sure,
where
Brian.
that money came from. Maybe we took it out of ballot clerk. I don't know. But I do know I got a bill from them.
Okay, take your time and look into that. I'm looking at the
And how many there were, by
salaries for,
how many there were, one or three?
I think all 3 went to that.
I've actually got some documentation here today that is different than what's showing on the worksheet, which is 2019. Oh, no, that was a budget amount, I'm sorry. So the actual for 2018, which would have been a midterm elections, so that was $1,632.50, $1,632. and 18, yeah, that's what I'm showing.
1971.
That's, I've got it on the worksheets here that,
You looking at the actual or the budget?
no, the actual, it says 2018 actual, 1632.50. I'm looking at the worksheets that you have provided. This one is probably from last year's budgeting, 2020 budget cycle. I see it at the bottom as a total, but not as a salary.
Oh, no, I'm talking total, sorry.
We're on, salaries.
1632.50.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I mean, we were, right now, we're sitting at 1,245 to the good on the salary for this year.
yeah,
I mean, it historically hasn't gone over. I don't know if we're charging that to something else that we shouldn't be.
I don't know. The man with the keyboard who's inputting where the money's going.
It could have something to do with the ballot clerk. He might be.
So, it shouldn't be, but, one never knows. Okay. So with that, I'll just put this off the side until Brian tries to solve the puzzle. Otherwise, I'm thinking there's probably sufficient funds, the way it's put together. This is their budget. I'm gonna take it on faith that they put in what they wanted. I've reached out and talked to them, at least to the chair. So,
Well, Brian, could you be able to sign that one?
depending on what he finds, I'm thinking we're
Very good.
good to go. I have a copy of the police budget, and that must be, yeah, so, it's no change in the bottom line, redistribution of funds. So Dave, did you get a copy of the PD budget?
Got one that, yep.
Oh, okay.
To repurpose the funds into the archives,
Yes, okay.
and the increase in sizes.
Just as long as you had that, and, again, I'll just keep that on the schedule to have,
We're gonna do that on
Dr. Shane come in. I think it would be,
the 27th.
yes, on the 27th. I think it's best that we spend some time with him.
You're gonna do the dog office at the same time?
Yes. Yeah, that's really under his. So with that, we have the fire warden here at 2,500, and if that was previously unsigned, Dave?
That was unsigned.
Okay, we'll get to one of those.
Right. Like I said, I sent one before I had that.
Yeah, no, I did get to read through that and remembered reading it. I remembered something. I got my emails down from just over 100 the other day. I didn't look at my emails all day. I was just like, you gotta be kidding me.
Would you sign in the firewood, Mike?
Yes, I did that. What's that, Chuck?
Just go in and do delete.
Then he comes in and asks questions about the email he sent me. This guy's following up. Oh. Yeah, that hamburger you cooked on Facebook, you wanted a response. The cheese, it had cheese, right?
So you're gonna try to schedule the historic district in or not?
At this point, no. Chris has made a couple of, she's reached out a couple times, there's no response. The board doesn't seem to be functioning, so I just think we just, you know, if you don't have a commission or committee or something that's functioning, what do? You make them come in, it's volunteer. So.
I sent out all the notices to the budget committee, then I also sent another one to the select board. So it is sent to the emails that's on file.
Well, again,
I haven't run into him to make sure he's got them, but.
Yeah, I didn't see him around at all.
the budget was, I don't think they spent anything last year. And as far as I know, I don't think they spent anything. If they did this year, maybe it's $50. So the budget got slashed from somewhere over $1,000 or $1,200 last year to like 420 comes to mind. So at that point, I don't feel that I'm comfortable slashing any more. I let that individual, those board members come in and speak to the budget committee on why they should have funds or not have funds. And if they don't show up, then the budget committee should do whatever they think is the right thing to do.
Well, they have not spent anything.
I mean, our job is to kind of have some oversight and work with the budgets and the committees and departments. And if you're not here to work with, I don't know what we do about
We'll
it.
just keep with the same schedule. If he shows up, he shows up. If not, we're gonna deal with the schedule that, the budget that we have presented in front of us.
That's it.
We'll set it. Reach out.
Yep.
Yep. So, with that, we have now signed everything except the supervisors. And once Brian gets back to us with that, we'll have our decision. And he's back.
What I find looking in QuickBooks, and someone's gonna have to help me, was Tim Eldridge a supervisor of checklist, so did he get appointed?
This election, he got appointed to fill that position.
Okay, we paid each one of them $120 on 2/21/2020 for the, working as the supervisors at the GovernmentOversite School District. We also paid Cheryl Fyrick an additional $28.18 for mileage going over there, and she took past Piper with her.
So we paid Tim Eldridge to go over, is that?
Tim Eldridge,
The school.
Pat Piper, and Cheryl Fyrick, each $120
Okay.
gross
So $360 total and then mileage?
in mileage. Only one, apparently Tim didn't put in for mileage, I see no mileage. The Cheryl did and said she picked up Pat Piper.
Okay, so that went under the supervisors,
Yes.
and is that in, what's the actual today for their budget, 2020 actual as of today?
I didn't have any more information I brought in.
I got that the salary they've used, $1,155. What is it, 22?
Yeah, that's why I was figuring there might be something else in there. The 922 budget may not reflect everything. I don't know why it would. That one should be a quick, easy.
So every year they go to Governor Watt.
Apparently, who
Yeah, I
knew?
knew they went over, but I didn't realize we paid for them.
Makes sense.
It does.
I was a state, that he had already got lump sum, or he had no.
I believe so, and yeah, it's I don't know when that was enacted exactly. I personally don't have an issue with it when I see that they come in here and they sit out in the back and go through the list of voters and they review those lists, they interact with the state. I mean, there's some work that's involved here. And we have a hard time getting volunteers just to volunteer for things. Having them do the work that they do for the stipend that they're getting is probably a pretty good deal. And if they weren't doing it,
Called a steal.
yeah, really, if they weren't doing it, I don't know what we do. That's a can of worms.
So far, this year,
Yes.
now you still got an election to go November 3rd. The advertising, they were budgeted $50, they haven't spent anything in it. The mileage, they were budgeted $220. For postage, they were budgeted $55. The salaries, they were budgeted $2,400, they've spent $1,510. Software support, they didn't get any money. For supplies,
Dollar.
budgeted $1, they've spent $44. $266.no. They've spent $1,554.99, which leaves them $1,711. They're 47% spent on their budget.
So, Brian, do you, when do you give when do you pay those stipends?
They send me a slip 4 times a year.
Okay, quarterly then, basically, is that what it is? You know,
The answer to that is yes, as long as the chairman remembers to send me the slip.
yeah. So
Carol missed the first one, she was late on the second one, and I haven't got the third one yet.
new chair. I don't understand then where all that money, $348 went.
Okay, but what you can do is,
I'm gonna sign it, and if it needs to be adjusted, it'll be on your end.
I'll bring that up to Carol.
Exactly, so if
And then
we're all,
we can adjust it.
okay,
Yeah,
so,
but just so I make sure I understand, Brian, you said there was 123 times?
360 in total.
$28 for one mileage the other person didn't put in, the other two people.
And
That
supplies.
was all to do with the Governor Wentworth recent election. Governor Wentworth election attendance.
Who went over? All 3 of them did.
So I'm,
Yeah, all that was all, this last one.
Okay. What did you say, you said you paid, mileage?
Yeah, I don't know where it's
What is
not
mileage?
there. I'll
Think
find
about
it.
this.
I don't know.
It probably came out of a different line item where she's something else, and
Paid it out of the school fund.
okay then. So, those are signed, Dave, and they're here. You can get yourself some copies to the office or leave them yourselves. Thank you. And that pretty much ends this. Chris has got to get out of here.
and so doesn't Audrey.
Okay. And with that, I don't know that there's anything else to be covered. I don't believe I have anything. Did you guys want to do more work on anything today, or have we had enough?
I've got enough to do this afternoon
Okay.
for the town.
I won't even ask Tom then.
I was gonna say another 4 hours, that's good for me.
He's looking too refreshed. Looking too refreshed, leaning in his chair over there.
My wife's birthday today, so.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Is she taking you someplace nice?
I hope so.
Lucky guy.
Oh, how was I got invested?
All right then, I guess with that, there's no other business. Anybody, anything?
Oh, yeah, I was called out there by Consolidated.
Yes.
They want another hole put in now. It's in the front of the building. They want it, you know, that 2-inch pipe
Yeah.
coming up. And they want one of those LG connectors on the top of it. It'll go right angle.
Yeah.
With a wire.
LV.
LV's that outside. They want one of those put on the top.
Okay.
They'll be here Friday to do the second stage of the inside work. They got the wire running to the pipe. Out to there, it's coiled up from that little fence thing for today till Friday. I'll put another hole where they showed me to put it Friday. Okay. I mean tomorrow, so it's ready for that Friday. I'll pick up the
LV.
2-inch by 1-inch connector.
Okay.
You're gonna need the.
Yes, sir.
All right. And
You bring it with you tomorrow? You can bring it with you tomorrow?
That's for you. Language, that's for warrant article language.
oh. And this is for you, what you're looking for the?
Yeah, town hall project, yeah.
Okay.
And the library's not putting one in.
Okay. All right. With things, that's our next step is to compile warrant articles. So.
Yep, I knew you were looking for that, so.
Yeah, I'll be looking for a lot more too. All right then, with that, I'll entertain a motion if everybody's all good to go. I was looking for my agenda here, and it's nothing on it. Yeah, did we need a non-public for something, wasn't there? It was employment issue, and was there something else?
Legal issue?
Oh, legal. Yeah, we could do a quick one, I guess, and knock those out.
Okay.
All right. So, instead of looking for an adjournment, I will make a motion to, take a recess till 11:45 on our clock here. God only knows what time it really is. And then, we'll go into a non-public at that point.
Yep. Fuller second.
Motion to take a recess?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Fuller, aye.
All right. See you in a few.
Okay, we're back.
All right then, would entertain a motion to go back into public session.
I make a motion, public session. Second.
All right,
Fuller, aye.
Alan, aye. All right, and with that, I guess we'll close out the meeting, and I'll entertain a motion for that.
Make a motion to adjourn,
Fuller second.
Alan says aye.
Fuller, aye.
All right.
Thank you very much, folks.
So Chuck,
Have a great week.